This is the Beechcraft King Air C90. If everything that defines utilitarian can be put into a picture, here it is. 6 different King Air models have been produced by Beechcraft, the first of which, the King Air 90, debuted in 1964 following 3 years of design and test flights. The 90 is the smallest boat in the fleet as well. The plane has always been associated with traits like dependability, versatility, and a chic appearance. Beechcraft, never one to rest on their laurels, kept their noses to the grindstone and kept developing their King Air 90 aircraft. The aircraft has undergone improvements with cutting-edge design throughout the years, making it a popular choice for business travel. When the King Air C90 first rolled off the manufacturing line in 1971, it was a new and improved King Air 90 as a result of the improvements made over the years. The weight and wingspan of the aircraft were both enhanced, and the cabin pressure was also raised. The engines have also been modified numerous times to increase performance numbers, and the rear fuselage was streamlined with more efficiency for better flying speeds. But that isn't all. What say we learn more about this incredible airplane? If first impressions are anything to go by, the Beechcraft C90 King Air will undoubtedly leave you in awe. This aircraft looks amazing even while it is merely cold and dark on the ramp. A cantilever low-wing monoplane with a traditional tail, the King Air C90 is a pressurized, twin-engine turboprop commercial aircraft. It includes retractable tricycle landing gear with one wheel on each unit that is hydraulically operated, as well as an air stair door on the port side of the wing. For pressurization and cabin heating, it uses dual bleed air. The reversible 3-bladed propellers have full feathering. The C90 King Air maintains the timeless design of prior production models in the lineup. The swept blade propellers and winglets, though, make the distinctions clear right away. The C90 King Air is distinguished by these attributes alone. The winglets and the swept blade propellers give the C90 GTX King Air a rapid, sporty look. Previously optional on the Queen Air, de-icing boots on the leading edges of the wings, fin, and tailplane were now standard equipment on the King Air to increase its utility and safety in varying flight conditions. The King Air C90 GTX has one of the best interiors in its class. The interior is decorated in a professional manner, as is typical of commercial airplanes. Up to 7 people can be accommodated in the airplane, which can be flown by a single pilot. The Beechcraft King Air C90 has 6 seats in total, 4 of which are bucket style in the front. A belted toilet seat that can be utilized as an extra seat is located in the back cabin. Another normal padded seat is located at the far back of the turboprop. When compared to other airplanes in its class, the King Air C90 has a roomy interior. 4.75 feet is a respectable height for the category of interior height. The cabin is 4.5 feet in width and 12 feet 7 inches in length overall. The C90 is available in 5 different color or style options from Beechcraft and Textron. Beechwood, greige, mocha, parchment, and silver are the available selections. An area is available to store equipment and baggage at the back of the aircraft. The Beechcraft King Air C90 GTX can carry a maximum of 350 pounds of luggage. Because it is simple to reach during the flights, the interior baggage space is convenient for both passengers and the crew. Since the baggage space is a part of the cabin as a whole, there are no doors to open. 2 550 shaft horsepower Pratt & Whitney PT6A-135 engines provide the King Air C90 with its power. There are 3-stage axial flow engines with a single-stage reaction turbine and compressor. The fuel flow is scheduled by a pneumatic fuel control. For each given position of the propeller control lever, the propeller speed is constant within the governing range. One tank system is used for each engine in the airplane's fuel system, which is made up of 2 independent tank systems. The main system and an auxiliary system are further separated into a tank system. A nacelle tank and 2 wing leading edge tanks make up each main system, and they all gravity feed into the nacelle tanks. There are 194 total usable gallons in each primary system. The 41-gallon usable fuel tank for the auxiliary fuel system is situated in the wing, in front of the engine nacelle. To feed fuel to the main system, it uses an automatic fuel transfer system. Both a high-pressure fuel pump and a low-pressure boost pump are powered by each engine. Additionally, each nacelle tank has a low-pressure standby boost pump that is electrically powered. A 24-volt, 34-amp-per-hour NISOD battery, Two 250 ampere starter generators or an external power outlet provide power to the 28 VDC electrical system of the airplane. There is a hot battery bus available to power various convenience lighting, emergency gear, and other things. No matter where the bat switch is set, these devices always have power. This plane has a range of 840 nautical miles. Similar to the Dash 21 engines they replace, the PT6A-135A engines of the GT version are rated at 550 shaft horsepower. The new Pratts, however, are actually 750 SHP engines that have been limited to the lower takeoff maximum power. This implies that the new engines can continue to produce their full rated horsepower at a considerably higher altitude as the C90 climbs. The C90 reaches its stride at 25,000 feet or higher as opposed to the earlier King Air 90s, which reached their top speeds at 16,000 feet. The C90 is rated to 30,000 feet and can cruise at about 260 knots with the new engines, but we don't believe many pilots will frequently use that altitude. One explanation is that when flying at 30,000 feet, the cabin altitude is almost 12,500 feet with a maximum cabin pressure of 5 psi. Although that is legal, not every pilot finds it pleasant. Reduced vertical separation minimum standards for flying beyond 28,000 feet are another issue. The King Air can comply, but it involves extra work for a little gain in fuel efficiency. Because the C90's props turn at a maximum speed of 1900 RPM rather than the previous 2100 RPM, the cockpit is substantially quieter. The 90 series King Air's cabins have always been exceptionally quiet and cozy, but the cockpit is very near the prop tips and is thus not as peaceful. However, if Beech had not made key operational improvements, the lower maximum propeller RPM would have increased the need for a longer takeoff runway. Despite the fact that the new propellers and operating RPM are quite effective during climb and cruise, they are unable to match the high RPM prop's static thrust during takeoff. Therefore, a C90 King Air uses flaps during takeoff for the first time. The new C90 GT, by comparison, utilizes the same length of the runway for a sea-level takeoff as the C90B, with its first notch of the flaps down. Due to the new derated engine's capacity to maintain full power in hot or high takeoff conditions, the GT uses many hundreds of feet less for takeoff at higher elevation airports, especially on hot days. The C90 King Airs have had automatic propeller feathering, although it was an option rather than standard equipment, as it is on the larger King Airs. Auto feather and rudder bias are now standard for the C90 GT. In the event of an engine failure during or soon after takeoff, the auto feather system automatically feathers the propeller of the dead engine, and the rudder bias steps on the opposing rudder to maintain the plane's course. The working engine's bleed air pressure is used by the rudder bias mechanism to push the rudder in the right direction. It has no electronics or intricate components and is a very straightforward device. The King Air C90 GT is outfitted with Rockwell Collins' ProLine 21 Avionics suite, which includes digital radio and audio systems, multi-sensor flight management systems, FMS, that use multiple aircraft position inputs, solid-state weather radars, Rockwell Collins' automated chart selection system to lessen the workload of the pilot, monitoring of onboard systems and XM satellite weather, universal graphic weather for international operations, and a Rockwell Collins flight data recorder. Other avionics include a global positioning system, GPS, traffic collision avoidance systems, TCAS, terrain awareness and warning systems, TAWS, a high-speed USB database loader, and integrated flight information systems, IFIS, which give pilots access to a variety of capabilities. To improve safety and situational awareness, the features include map overlays and computerized JPESN charts. Because the C90 King Air still has toggle switches, gauges for various systems, and only basic electronic flight instruments, you won't mistake it for any brand new design turbine aircraft. However, the C90 definitely has a huge airplane feel to it. Instead of using engine bleed air to heat the windscreens, wipers are used to clear the rain. The power levers and control wheels are hefty in a way that inspires confidence. And from where you're sitting, you can see many jets and other smaller aircraft below. After testing the proof-of-concept King Air 87 for 10 months, an aircraft that was never sold, Beechcraft launched the Model 6590 in January 1964. In October of that same year, the first 6590 produced was delivered. The 65A90, 65A91, 65A92, 65A93, and 65A94 are all variations of the 6590. After producing the 6590 for 2 years, Beechcraft switched to the 65A90 in 1966. The A90's TOGW was raised from 9,000 to 9,300 pounds, and its PT6A-6 engines from the original 6590 were replaced with more potent PT6A-20 engines. It also had a new engine de-icing system, and its flight deck had been updated. The 65A90 was the most extensively produced of the variants. The A91 was an unpressurized version with square windows built for the US Army, which was known as the U-21A. The U-21B was a specialized military variant of the A92 with a changed cabin configuration. The A93 was another military variant manufactured for the US Army that was given the RU-21C designation due to enhanced electronic equipment. The A94, which was also manufactured for the US Army, received stronger airframes and higher gross weights. Between 1967 and 1971, a total of 162 military variants were constructed, several of which were outfitted with electronic surveillance equipment. Beechcraft produced 206 A90s between 1966 and 1968 before switching to the King Air B90. The B90 features superior ailerons and a larger wingspan than the A90, which somewhat enhances its performance. Additionally, it received larger cabin windows, increased pressurization, and better instrumentation. Additionally, its TOGW was raised from 9,300 to 9,650 pounds. Beechcraft switched from the B90 to the King Air C90 in 1971. There are several variations of the C90, including the C91, C90A, C90B, C90SE, C90 GT, C90 GTI, and C90 GTX, which is still manufactured today. Based on the B90, the original C90 has been updated with a better pressurization system, a changed cabin, and PT6A-21 engines. The C91 version features the E90's tail, better power output, and a higher maximum cabin pressure differential. Improved electrical, pressurization, and heating systems, as well as improved landing gear retraction, are all features of the C90A. The C90B has a higher MTOW and nosier Hartzell props, whilst the C90 SE is a more affordable, simplified version of the C90B. Beechcraft replaced the 4-bladed Hartzell propellers on the C90B with 3-bladed propellers on the C90 SE, and did away with the high-end Collins Avionics system. For the C90 SE, Beechcraft also substituted a lightweight curtain for the fixed wall separating the cockpit from the cabin. The C90 GT has PT6A 135A engines that are more potent. A GT derivative with improved Collins Proline 21 avionics is the C90 GTI. The C90 GTX's MTOW was raised to 10,485 pounds, and it comes with standard winglets. The C90 GT, powered by a more potent PT6A 135A engines, can by comparison travel 1,068 nautical miles at a standard cruise speed of 247 knots, and needs 4,406 feet of runway for takeoff and 3,060 feet for landing. The first thing you'll notice about a King Air C90 or a Cessna 421C is their enormous size. Seats in both cabins are roomy and suitable for individuals of all shapes and sizes, including the tall and wide. The pilot must make a hunched-over climb up the aisle between the seats, but once there, they are greeted by a spacious cockpit, with plenty of panel space for the newest technology, plenty of legroom, and big, comfortable chairs. The pilot is seated high off the ground in both aircrafts, enjoying a grand appearance view that is clearly different from any piston single. Both offer strong all-engine operating performance numbers, with the C90 slightly outperforming the others in terms of climbing and cruising. The C90 will average approximately 220 kTAS, while the 421C will average approximately 205 kTAS. The C90 will exceed 1,000 feet per minute early in the climb and maintain that value for the majority of the climb into the flight levels. The 421C will maintain 1,000 feet per minute early in the climb, but engine temperatures will necessitate a cruising climb airspeed of around 600 FPM while leveling off in the flight levels. What are the genuine differences for the picky customer when cabin size and performance are so similar? A C90 or a 421C will both successfully get you from point A to point B, and both will cost far more to run than any single-engine piston. What do you choose though? According to our verdict, it ultimately depends on your needs. Your trip requirements may be perfectly satisfied by the big piston Cessna 421C, and if you have between $350,000 and $450,000 to spend, you can get one of the nicest Cessna 421Cs ever built. You should be able to purchase a 421C with really beautiful paint and upholstery, a fully equipped avionics panel, low engine and airframe times, and an instance with no history of damage. That $450,000 will also get you a C90, but it will be an earlier 1970s model with outdated avionics, worn paint and interior, and engines in their prime. However, it will be a turbine, which can be frightening to the inexperienced. However, if you can't afford to fly behind a PT6, you should. Ultimately, the engines are crucial, and this is where the C90 excels. Tired paint and mediocre interiors will only be an irritation for a short time. If you have a competent GPS unit and an autopilot, you might not mind having steam gauges. So, if you can find a good bones C90 with good engines, you've got a contender. The King Air C90 has a functional bathroom system that provides comfort for passengers. A smart passenger might even choose the belted restroom for the lengthy trip rather than the main cabin seats if all the seats are taken. There's ample space for legs and solitude. The C90 has plenty of room for luggage as well. You can actually transport 6 people and their luggage, and still have room for a lot of gasoline. It is a sturdy, reliable Beechcraft King Air that is also a comfortable cross-country cruiser. The C90's biggest feature, though, is its PT6 engines. There are literally thousands of PT6 21 engines flying around the world, so locating an experienced maintenance source is simple. It is not the sexy, huge engine found on some other planes, but it is a sturdy and smooth engine that hums along without a murmur, like the C90. Unless you run the fuel tank dry, it should not fail unexpectedly once started. That's pretty awesome. There is a weak point in every King Air 90 model. The pressurization air travels from the cabin to the nose, then via the air conditioner evaporator, a crossover duct, and the heater on the other side before returning to the cabin. These ducts get old and brittle after 9,000 hours, split, and leaks start to appear. Although it is plumbed differently, this crossover duct is present in other King Air variants. When troubleshooting pressurization, prioritize your 90 if you have one because it has the most issues with this duct. The C90 won't travel the furthest, nor is it the fastest or the most powerful, but you get a lot of airplane and performance for your money. The C90 is mocked by professional pilots for being a sluggish turbine, but those who truly know best will attest that it arrives on most trips just a little bit later than some other sleek aircraft, and its owner doesn't have to empty their bank account to buy or fly it. Of course, there are E90s and F90s, as well as other modifications to make the C90 seem like the newer and faster model, but the C90 is the most common King Air 90 model. Why? The C90 lives the unofficial design philosophy of the whole King Air fleet. In no single aspect of consideration is it the best, but in every category, it is really good.